Welcome into Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. Casey Phillips here with special guest Steve Smith Sr. Now, here's the deal. A lot of Bucs fans have been around a bit.
Yeah.
They may not be excited to see you on here.
Actually, I would disagree. I was walking past the fans, and I got a cheer.
Wow.
That's why I'm sweating profusely, because I was exhausted by the love that I was given.
You know, time heals all wounds.
Surprisingly. I was like, oh.
I like it. You know, we're a friendly group down here, you know, so we can
The tech cap right there. That's a cap right there.
That's right.
I've been in a lot of NFC South homes.
Yes.
And this is the nicest I've been
Look at
treated
that.
in a decade.
Wow.
Yes.
I like it. You know what? We'll take it. And now there's an even further chance to endear yourself to Bucs fans, because now you get a chance to hype up this squad. So, of course, we got to start with the wide receivers.
Yes.
Hey, we like starting with them this year anyways, but then especially talking to you about it. So tell me your thoughts, expectations, especially knowing now Julio Jones is a part of this group. So tell me what gets you most excited to see on a Sunday with that group of people.
I'm not really sure I'm excited. I think more that I'm having anxiety for the defenders. While you have 24 years of experience of football, they've completed. Not heading into, but 24 years of experience they've completed. 1,827 receptions. 27,000, I think 274,000 yards. That's a lot of headaches for a lot of people on the defensive side. You talk about that experience that you guys have. This is just the guys that are veterans in your locker room. The young guys are still learning. So if you collaborate the old and the young offensively, I see why you're 26 in rushing, because you got too much playmakers in the wide receiver in the passing game that you must feed these beasts. So it's one of those things that, being a former Carolina Panther, it's crazy to see that twice a year to go against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to be a tough task.
Yeah, I think that I completely agree with you. And looking at the team overall, what are the things that you feel like come this fall, you're just, even just being out here at practice today, outside of the wide receivers, what are the things that you're kind of wanting to see, wanting to check out, or expectations for the group?
I don't know what expectations there is to have because, one, we have Tom Brady, and obviously what you guys have already winning the world championship. It already builds up unrealistic expectations. Like from day one, you expect clean, fluidness, no mistakes. That's not realistic, because when you have terrific Tom, that's the expectation. But this defense that you guys have is so fantastic. They give headaches. You got young. You want to get younger and faster. And that's dangerous to hear, because even the veterans you have are pretty fast as well. So just talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is a team overall. I believe for the NFC, are the people to beat, right? You could talk about the world champs being the LA Rams, but that doesn't always equal up to things, because they lost some key components, some key players. Tampa Bay hasn't. They've actually added to a stellar roster already, and just with the addition of Julio Jones. So when I watch practice, I just love to see how guys operate, how coaches coach them, what are the little nuances that they're reminding them of, because the devil are in the details. And so that's what I always like to watch. And when you can't get that during the season, because now you're just game planning and you're coaching up each week the new emphasis. But in training camp, all and everything is pushed to the limit, so I love watching that.
And then finally, we'll close with this. Todd Bowles, new head coach here, but not new to the organization. So what are your thoughts on him getting another shot at the head coaching job, and what you think him leading the crew here is going to look like and do for this squad?
Well, the Todd Bowles that you see in front of the film is not in front of the camera is not actually the Todd Bowles that he is. He's very funny. He's outgoing, but he's very reserved in front of the camera. Personally knowing Todd, he's a fantastic man. I believe that you have the best man for the job. I believe that it's a long time coming for a Todd Bowles to get the opportunity. Yes, it didn't work out well with the New York Jets, but heck, who has worked out well for the New York Jets for the last 10 years? So I just believe that Todd Bowles is a man that will do some really outstanding things, and just the way he operates from AB is significantly different, because they're two different people. But overall, I think if the torch is handed off, I think maybe possibly years to come we'll find out that the torch that was handed off actually has gone and exceeded more expectations before the previous head coach, AB, who's pretty darn good himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Steve, thanks for coming on here. And you know what? We're going to consider you part of the Bucs family now.
Really?
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Wow.
I know.
Okay,
We're just going to forget all the times you torched us back in the day.
Alternate jersey stuff, if you have an extra helmet, that you need to throw on it.
Now I see why you're part of the crew, you know?
No, that's the only official way that I'll be.
Okay, all right.
You can't give me a T-shirt and say, well, official, because, I wash sometimes and I can shrink it. So then what happens if I have a schmedium?
We'll get you the legit and not a schmedium. We'll get you the real thing. Well, Steve, thanks for coming on. And we got more coming up here on Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. Let's check out yesterday's highlights.
Rashaad White, running back, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, born and raised. I got 3 older brothers. I got 1 older sister, a younger sister. My older brothers, they really just play football. When I was watching my older brothers go out there and play, I was that little kid who would try to run on the field and things like that, and they got to be like, oh, somebody get their kid type deal. So that was me. So I just knew that when I was able and old enough to play football, I was going to do it. I went to Mount San Antonio College. It's out in Walnut, California, Southern California. I just went out there. I had to do 2 years out there because I was a qualifier coming out of high school, but bouncing back to junior college, that makes you a non-qualifier, so now you have to get an associate's degree, AA degree. I would just say, it was tough. I was working jobs, playing football, going to school, working factories. It was all kind of stuff going on that was deep and dark, but, football was my light, and I knew that, I'd get through it as long as I just, keep a steady positive mindset and head. Football gives you a lot of values that, life that can help you off the field and life in general. So that's what it is. Just trying to be the best. If I do something, everything I do, regardless of what it is, might not be my sport. If we having a softball charity event or something, I'm going to try to hit the ball the farthest, hit home runs, just be the best out there. So that's just what really drives me in football. I just want to be the best at my position, want to be the best player on the field, and just go hard at everything I do. They can expect for me to just be a great teammate. Whatever my job is, whatever my role is, they can expect me to just do it at a high level. They can just expect a guy you see. I'm always smiling. I'm always just having fun, a guy that has fun out there, and a guy that's going to give his teammates his all, regardless of what I'm doing out there.
Welcome back into Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith. And we had
second Smith.
Yeah, I was saying we had a different Scott with Scott Hansen, and then we had a different Smith. I promise we're not replacing you.
Well, I feel like it's like baseball, and you're bringing in we're starting with openers.
Yes.
Every time.
But
and
that
then
means you're the closer.
Well, it means I'm long middle relief, basically.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Closer.
Yeah, you're all of it.
Yeah.
You're getting asked to do all the rest of it.
I might need to renegotiate my contract.
Yes. All right. Well, we are going to check out our Ticketmaster play of the day from yesterday. And like a lot of these do, they start with number 12. But this time, we're seeing the long bomb to number 10, Scotty Miller. And this is a guy that we'd kind of gotten used to seeing that from a couple years ago. And then last season, there was a bit of a drop-off. So tell me what we think Scotty Miller is capable of, looking at a couple years ago, last year, and what kind of caused the drop-off and how to maybe bring it back.
Yeah, I thought I might actually show up in that play today because I was really right there on the sideline where that play happened, and it was great to see. It was a down and out, a quick out, and then down, out, and up. So he did a quick out, but then he burst by the defensive back. But then there was a safety there too, and there was pretty decent coverage by the time the ball got there. But Scotty was able to sort of dive in between those two guys and make the catch and hold on to it when he landed. It was kind of a rough landing for him. It took him a little while to shake that off, but it was great to see. That was a pass from Tom Brady, as you saw. And as we know, in 2020, which was Scotty's second season, he really kind of quickly formed a chemistry with Tom Brady and became a pretty good deep threat. Had about 500 yards during the regular season, had a couple big plays in the playoffs, particularly the big touchdown right before halftime against Green Bay. And if you look at it, in that 2020 season, Scotty Miller was one of Tom Brady's favorite deep targets. If this counts the playoffs, but of the 7 longest passes that Tom Brady completed that year, 3 of them went to Scotty Miller, including number 1. You probably remember the one in Las Vegas where he caught it right in the back corner of the end zone, and then, of course, the Green Bay one we were just talking about. Then last year, early on, Scotty got a turf toe injury, which is, as we've talked about before, is one of those injuries that should have a better name because it really is much more disruptive than it sounds like it should be. And it's a tough one to overcome. He was on IR for a while, and when he came back, he really didn't have a big role in the offense. And so it was a bit of a lost season for Scotty, but personally, I would like to see that connection rekindled with them. And, you know, we could talk about receivers on this show every day. You were talking about them with Steve Smith, and we still got plenty of fresh topics. Like, unfortunately, one of them would be, it appears Rashaad Perryman got a minor injury yesterday and is not practicing today. And in this environment, you know what? I'll point out that yesterday, Coach Bowles was talking about that and the receivers. And a lot of times at this point in camp, this isn't the first year we've been sitting here going, how are we going to get these down to 6 or 7 players? And Coach used the phrase war of attrition, which means stuff happens along the way, and it might be you can't figure out how to get down to 6 now, and then by the time it's cut down to regular, you're like, do we have 6? You know, health issues could be a problem. Guys fall off. They're not consistent. So, you know, what you want to see and what Tom Brady says, what you want to see is continual progression every day, none of this 1 step forward, 2 step back. Right.
And looking at, we talked specifically about Scotty Miller and the longer passes. You know, with the guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Russell Gage, like there's pretty much kind of a set group there, and we talked about the idea of these last couple spots and that special teams was going to be a big part of that, but also just what you're going to need from wide receivers and the different things that they bring. Do you think that the long ball is something that Scotty could essentially win a spot based on?
It's something that sets him apart, I think. And everybody on this team knows that Scotty is really, really fast. The other receivers give a nod to his speed. It was funny yesterday. It was, I think Carlton Davis was talking about Julio Jones, and it was a great line. He goes, he looks like a tight end. He's as fast as Scotty, and he stops on a dime like Jalen Darden.
Jeez.
So, I mean, but my point being, his comparison for who's the fast guy on this team is Scotty Miller. And that speed, that's what got him drafted, because he was, you know, quite a bit smaller than your normal receiver. He's you know, bulked up a little bit, gotten stronger, but still, he's not a huge receiver, but that speed sets him apart. And that's why I think that could be a trait that is a difference maker in that incredible competition.
Yeah, I remember he talked about how he was downing these huge protein shakes right before bed, just trying so hard. And I thought that sounded terrible, but hey, you know what? If it gives you those extra pounds to take a hit.
You know, you can make a protein shake. You can put chicken in it. You could dice up chicken and put
yes,
it in
you know, that's true. We did try that.
Experienced.
Get you some extra protein there. So yeah, and then looking at Scotty Miller from a special team standpoint, what kind of role do you think that you could see him having?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't think. I guess he did do a little bit of coverage last year. That's right. He did do a little bit of gunner work, and that speed plays, because even if he's not the guy making the tackle, he gets down there really quick and forces the guy one way or another. So he could be a gunner. He has a little bit of that. He could be a return man. You know, the ratio of number of times that he's fielded a punt in practice to the number of times he's done it in games is like 2,000 to 1. I think he's fielded 1. So he hasn't really got much of a chance to be a punt returner, but I think he could do that.
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to take another break. We have more coming up here on Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. But for now, let's meet rookie Zion Mccullum.
Zion Mccullum, defensive back, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, I was actually born in McKinney, which is near Dallas, but our mom moved me and my twin brother down to Galveston. We were there for 8 years, and I mean, it was great. I loved every bit of it. It's a small island. It's a real, you know, tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. It was just my mom and my twin brother, really just the three of us. We were into outdoorsy stuff a lot. I mean, fishing, hiking, running, all type of stuff, playing basketball. I mean, I loved having a twin brother. I'm so blessed to have a twin brother. I wish everybody had their own twin. I mean, we love sports. We owned golf clubs, we owned bats, and we didn't even play golf in high school or ever, and we didn't play baseball, but I mean, we would find an open field and just try to just do new stuff. I started playing football in Little League. I played for a team called the Riptides. At the time, I didn't really know too much about football. I think I played fullback at the time, and then corner. I was really, really small. I was always really, really small growing up. I was a late bloomer, but the more that I grew as a person, as a man, and I started to get more intelligent and more wise, I started to understand, like my why in terms of playing, and it really just grew my passion for it. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I'm trying to be the best version of myself in really everything, whether it's a combine drill, on the field or off the field. I'm just gonna keep growing and keep getting better and better. I'm here to, get everybody better and to up the competition and to just keep going, but definitely grow as a family, because, the closer that we can get and the more trust we have with each other, then the faster we can fly around as DBs on the field. And, we have to be able to work together to really, play at a high level.
I think it was back in 2016 or 17 when I went to watch him play in high school. And he's a good player then, he's improved, and he's doing his thing right now.
Seeing him and how he just gives back to the community, and he comes back to play in the teacher-student basketball game. Of course, he's on the teacher's side, and they always win because it's a bunch of old people around. Then you got Mike Evans dunking on people. But, I mean, it's just great. It's definitely somebody that I look up to. And not only as a player, but really just as a person, for everything that he just gives, for him to just take it all in and then perform like he does on the field. It's inspiring.
Welcome back into Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. It is time for our final segment here. And, we've given a lot of love to the offense so far. Let's switch over to the other side, especially because they're right over here behind us. You can see this is some of the D-line setup, and that is right behind our little stage. We always get to watch the big guys in their individual drills behind us. And, with Todd Bowles taking over as head coach, I can only imagine that that's got to be so exciting for the defense. And we've talked about all the versatility of your linebackers, your safeties, some of your DBs. But, man, these big guys up front, I think, are really what allow this defense to do as many things as they do. So run defense is always where it starts. So, hi, guys. Speaking of which, Vita just yelled at us. So let's talk about him. Let's talk about Vita.
Tell me these stats.
Yeah, tell me about especially yesterday.
Look at the screen here in a second, Vita. Yeah, the pads went on yesterday, and so as Coach Bowles said, the big guys get bigger, and it becomes more of their game because that's what they're used to, is putting the pads on and bashing into each other. And it was no surprise that Vita Vea, towards the end of yesterday's practice, was looking pretty dominant, and he's just stronger than anybody that the offensive linemen ever have to block. So it's quite a load for those guys, and it's also, I read a little bit into that. Maybe I'm reading into it, but it's pretty cool that Vita was dominating at the end of an hour and 45-minute long practice, because that means the conditioning is good, right?
That's true.
But anyway, as we talked about, I believe yesterday, the Bucs' run defense has been really good for the past 3 years since Todd Bowles got here. But it's really good in particular when Vita Vea is on the field. And look at these numbers from Next Gen Stats from the NFL. Over the last 2 years, when Vita's been on the field, the Buccaneers have allowed 3.6 yards per carry and 0.6 yards for the running back before there's some kind of contact. So when he's off the field, it's 4.3 yards per carry and a whole nother yard. So obviously Vita's either holding up blockers, so he's not getting pushed back, or he's actually penetrating and getting in there before the running back can even get to the line of scrimmage. So you can't overstate how important he is to this defensive front.
That's true. And something that I think is going to be even more important this camp, we always talk about how strong the other side of the ball is for that group in practice, that Tom Brady helps the defense by having to go against them. And I think about how now you're wanting to see who could take over for Ryan Jensen at center. Having to go against Vita every day, that's a heck of a way to tell where you stand. And Akeem Hicks, all these guys. I mean, like that, you would know if this guy is ready.
Exactly.
If you're watching that in practice.
That's exactly what Todd Bowles said yesterday. Exactly. He was talking about Robert Hainsey, and he said, He worked all last year because when you get to the regular season, when you're practicing, you're not going ones on ones. You're going ones on twos and threes. And so Robert Hainsey, being the backup center, was generally blocking Vita Vea all year in practice last year, and now during the offseason a little bit, and now in this camp, since the ones are going against the ones a lot, it's Robert Hainsey trying to block Vita Vea and Akeem Hicks. And as Coach Bowles said yesterday, he might run into a quicker guy, and we've got some of those too, like Logan Hall. You might run into a quicker guy, but you're not going to run into a stronger guy. So, yeah, you're exactly right, Casey. You make the point exactly. If he can block those guys, then you feel pretty good about him.
Yeah, and what do you see in terms of what having Vita and then a guy like Akeem Hicks, what this means for some of the other guys like Will Golston or Logan Hall, and how you see some of these snaps all getting distributed, or just the ways they like to deploy some of these D linemen?
I think we've seen enough here in practice to feel pretty confidently that the base defense, when they're in just their base 3-4 defense with 3 down linemen, it's generally been Vita as the nose, Will Golston at his best position, which is like a strong side 3-4 end, and Akeem Hicks on the other side as the 3 technique. But in sub packages is where it gets interesting, because then generally you only have 2 of those guys in. You have an extra defensive back, and a lot of times it's Will Golston that comes out. And so who are the 2 guys that are in on that package? It's going to be a lot of Logan Hall, I think. I think it's going to be Logan Hall paired with Vita Vea, Logan Hall paired with Akeem Hicks, some Will in there, some who didn't I say?
Nacho?
Vita. It's, just basically different combinations of those 2, but often with one of the guys is both Logan and Akeem Hicks are more 3 technique types. So I think you're going to have one of them on the field usually in your sub packages, and then pairing them with Vita or Will Golston or something like that.
Yeah, and what do you see is what that group will also allow some of the other positions to do, that when you see what we talked about of how dominant Vita is, how does that affect guys like Levante and Devin or Joe Tryon and whoever?
Well, I think we talked about it yesterday. When those guys are eating up a lot of blockers, even if they don't get to the quarterback or even if they don't get the running back, they're allowing Levante and Devin to run free, and those guys are so good at that. They're so rangy. Levante is so quick to the football, quick to read plays. He said, for instance, Levante has said since the offseason that the tackle for loss, which was a big part of his game through most of his career, was a bit lacking last year. The numbers weren't where they usually are, and he wants to get back to that. And part of that was because he wasn't really healthy for a good stretch there. But he wants to, he's good at reading and getting to that spot quickly, especially when it's like an outside zone run. And, if those blockers are tied up in front of him, then he's got a much better shot at getting a clear path to the ball carrier.
All right, well, that is going to do it for us today on Training Camp Report presented by Frontier. We will be back here tomorrow. We got the guys in pads now. There's so many more exciting things to see and talk about and know.
Storm rolling in.
Yeah, we're hoping that they'll
beat
the storm before we get out of here. So again, thank you for joining us, and come back tomorrow morning for another edition of Training Camp Report presented by Frontier.